Today we demonstrated that the previous government's attempt to entrap this young government into asphyxiating straitjackets, into a very tight schedule whereby immediately after our election we had a few short weeks in order to negotiate for the very first time in the history of our bailout since 2010, genuinely to negotiate in good faith but powerfully and in a committed manner to negotiate a way out for our country. We combined two things that are usually imagined to be contradictory. We combined logic and ideology in the way that we bargained. We combined respect for the rules and respect for democracy. We averted the view that a country that is heavily indebted and in a program cannot possibly claim that elections can change something. We stood upright from the beginning of the negotiations to the very end, especially when faced by immense pressure. And we showed that we were committed to skillful negotiations for the purpose of achieving a mutually beneficial agreement between us and our European partners. From the very first day that we got elected, we stated unequivocally, this government and I personally, we are not in the business of shortchanging our partners. We are not in the business of coming here in a tug of war to say, give us something when you lose something. We refuse to look at this negotiation as a zero-sum game where our gain is somebody else's loss. We genuinely and faithfully targeted one objective, and that was the interests of the average European. And we believe that today the agreement that we reached through this negotiation does place the interest of the average European above all else. Now, enough of this self-congratulation. This is time for work. I haven't finished, Paul. Be patient. It's a virtue. As you have heard from Mr. Dijsselbloem, whom, by the way, I want to thank profusely for the excellent work that he did today to steer the Eurogroup towards a successful completion of at least this phase, we showed that the Eurogroup can help a country like Greece attain degrees of freedom that are essential for a democracy. And we have concluded that this weekend is going to be a very hard weekend, but a very happy weekend. Because we get a chance to get down to work. Not to negotiate, not to have to worry about whether our point of view is going to be heard, but to get down to work in conjunction with our partners and with the institutions, who will be at an arm's length, of course. We are going to be teleconferencing. We are going to sit down and codify in the form of a table the reforms that this government wants to institute, wants to implement. And we'll have an open line with our partners and the institutions to exchange views, because we have a lot to learn from them. Because you see, this is the beauty of it. Once you have a relationship of equals instead of the relationship that we used to have, the collaboration can be a lot more fruitful. And this weekend is going to be such an occasion. We are leaving behind the days when a list of reforms that Greek society treated as a foreign body was imposed but not implemented because it was a foreign body. As of today, we're beginning to be co-authors of our destiny, co-authors of the reforms that we want to implement, which we are going to dictate, which we will discuss with our partners, and which we are going to use as a weapon against the deep malignancies of the Greek social economy, which have been characterizing Greece, not for the last few years, but for decades, if not a century. Malignancies that we need to target successfully, and this is our great challenge, if we're going to re-establish Greece's national independence. Today, if you look at the communiqué, the statement of the Eurogroup, we managed to avert a sequence of many years of suffocating primary surpluses that our economy can simply not produce without destroying the productive basis of the private sector. You will see in the communiqué, in the statement, that the Eurogroup very wisely accepted that 2015 is a difficult year because of the way it started, and that the primary surplus that we shall target, which will be positive, will nevertheless be determined by the facts on the ground, by the genuine economic circumstances that we face and which we will assess together with our partners. As for the primary surpluses of the years to come, which were at exorbitant levels of 4.5–5% for a large number of years ahead, you will notice that the wording includes a very good example of constructive ambiguity. We are referring to appropriate primary surpluses in line with previous decisions, and by that what we mean is that we are going to conduct our debt sustainability analysis in conjunction with the International Monetary Fund, which is very good at that and has always over the last few years held views with which I personally find myself in agreement with. At the very same time, we are going to commit, both sides need to commit in an agreement, but this time I am pleased to report that our commitments are commitments that we will want to make anyway. We committed not to be changing any piece of legislation or introducing unilateral measures that will jeopardize economic recovery, financial stability and the fiscal position of the government. This is a commitment which is actually pretty good for us. Sometimes, like Ulysses, you need to tie yourself on a mast in order to get to where you're going and to avoid the sirens. We intend to do this. We have averted, at the very same time, recessionary measures that were part of the previous arrangement. As you will see, there is no mention of any requirement that we reduce pensions, that we increase VAT in the Aegean Islands at the time when tourism is picking up as the spring is coming. Simultaneously with this agreement, we are putting together our teams that will begin the long, well, not that long, medium-term process of negotiating what we call a future contract for Greek recovery and growth, a contract between equals, between the Greek authorities, our partners and the institutions, to commence after June, after this 4-month period ends, with a view to growing ourselves out of the crisis, to negotiating with our partners ways of smartly restructuring our debt in a way that allows both Greece to breathe more easily and to repay in net present value terms more money to our partners. Remember, our task is to maximize the prospects of the average European citizen, not just of the average Greek. And allow me to finish by saying that today was a pivotal moment because Greece, which for 5 years now, during the bailout period, has been quite lonely in the Eurogroup, quite isolated. We felt this isolation in the last couple of Eurogroups. Today that isolation has broken. Today we have found partners amongst those who up until very recently looked at us with suspicion. There are some partners still that are looking at us with suspicion. This is our challenge to win over their trust, and we intend to do this. This is only a very first step on a long journey but long journeys have to commence with a step. The difference between this step and previous steps is that this is a step in the right direction. Thank you very much.